Good morning, my true crime lovelies. How are you? I hope you are well. I hope you are as lovely in life as you are in my mind. I'm going to go over Lori Vallow Daybell's first day in court with you. Oh my. First off, we lost a juror at the top. He was not going to receive benefits. The $300 from the augmented fund was not going to be enough. He has child support and alimony to pay. I think he would have been great to stay on the jury. Prosecution wanted him to stay on the jury. Lori was like, and he was out after some phone calls with his boss and research, etc. So we are down to 12 men, 3 women, 4 of them will be alternates. And so, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. The next thing that we had going on is Brandon Boudreaux, who Lori is accused of attempting to murder him, was present in the courtroom. Prosecution called out that he was present and was on the defense's witness list. However, he had not been served with a subpoena. Turns out no one has been served with a subpoena. Lori kept referencing some initialed agency that she was waiting to hear back. I've had people served before. As soon as they're served, you get an email and they attach, well, not the moment, but you get like the proof attached to your email, etc. I've never been in jail while this has happened, so I'm not sure how she's meant to be noticed, but it sounds like she still hasn't been noticed of who has been subpoenaed. So I'm concluding nobody, honey, ain't nobody been subpoenaed or nobody's been served with the subpoena. So that was sort of our housekeeping. The trial was delayed in starting because there was one jury member that was late. Now, is this the same jury member that ended up being dismissed? I do not know. But anyway, they did finally get underway. I loved the prosecution's opening statement. I saw around the interwebs it had mixed reviews. Luckily, nobody goes to Yelp, I hope, about opening statements. I hope. I don't know in this crazy world. But if you watched my morning video yesterday, she basically ran down the probable cause. Like her first line was, "I need you to stay close to me," which is an exact quote from Lori Vallow Daybell in that probable cause statement. And then she went, which was interesting because it's an attention grabber, right? So I was immediately pulled in. I feel like the jury was immediately pulled in. She was leaning into them. She was Trina K is her name, Miss Trina K. I felt like she was taking cues, kind of making eye contact, pausing, absorbing. I thought it was a really wonderful opening statement. She didn't mention any of the deceased people by name. For example, instead of saying Tylee, she said there was a teenager with Lori. It was all very well played, right? Because the thing that you and I know that the jury doesn't know is everybody who was at the scene of that crime is dead except for Lori, right? Including Alex. So Alex is gone, Charles is gone, Tylee is gone, JJ is gone. Alex not at the hands. But good Lord, maybe it was the stress of evil doing under the guise of goodness that caused him to go on to the other side, to the upper room. So what does Kathy say? The endless heaven buffet. I don't think we're gonna have to be fighting with him over anybody's key lime pie. I think he went the other direction. But so that is the unspoken tragedy in it all for those of us most of us who are viewing, but not for the jurors. They are not burdened with that information. And in contrast, I think Lori went overboard in her opening statement in that I'm going to play a little bit of it, but I know some of my members are like, I can't stand the sound of her voice. So I'm going to save as much as I can of her to the end. And then we'll go over that, right? So I'll do the summary first. She said their names repeatedly. And those of us true crime junkies, the reason you say someone's first name is to humanize them, right? We saw that where the prosecution objected in the Sarah Boone case to Owens calling her Sarah repeatedly. He needed to say either Miss Boone or Miss Sarah Boone, right? Because it personalizes it. And so she very much personalized her children. She talked about them by their name. Tylee was trying to protect her mom, and JJ is autistic and had to go to this special school, so we moved here, but then we moved back to Arizona. It was very much a pity story. She also cried, not only during her opening statement, but at the end of the a prosecutorial opening statement or prosecution's or opening statement. It's early. My brain is still warming up, and I'm not doing coffee. I'm doing orange juice because Sweet Pea is busy. If it's your first time here, I'll be 11 weeks pregnant this week, so I'm doing my best though. Um, so it seems like she wanted to elicit sympathy for herself, and I don't know if that was the right move. Especially, I feel like she's going to open the door to how everyone else is no longer here. Specifically Tylee and JJ, which is going to be detrimental for her. But she did, like we saw in the other interview, go on about a family tragedy. So I would agree with her if the family tragedy is that the mom lost her effing mind and killed her children, her husband. I would agree with her. And her, what did they say in the other rival? Her romantic rival, which is Tammy, which that is likely not to come in. I don't see that entering. But the way that she is, in my opinion, my 2 cents, eliciting emotion about the children and her daughter wanting to protect her, I feel like she's like treading into murky water. She doesn't know where she's going, but she's still going. Also, in her questioning, so if anybody's done like mock trial in high school or moot court, you don't ask questions that you don't know the answers to, right? So most lawyers are not going to ask questions they don't know the answer to. They've researched, they're well read. They are asking questions of answers that they know. They're eliciting that information to get it on the record, right? That is not what I found to be true for Lori. She asked a lot of questions that she had no idea what the answer was going to be. And she got a little petty. I'll show you that in one of the interviews. But, like, for example, and now I can't think of his name. Wait a minute. I have it. What is this man's name? Because I liked him. Yikes. Crotham, I think is how you say his last name. Crotham. It is Crautheim. That's Liberty. I don't know what is happening behind me, but she's reminding me that I haven't played the intro. So let's do that. And let me see if she'll settle down by the time the intro is done playing. Shout out to the members. Thank you for your support. All right, let's see how this goes. So, I was saying when she talked to Crotham, he'll say it again, but hopefully I'm not butchering it. Uh-oh. And now Liberty has woken up Sugar Bear. Hi, good morning. I'm coming. Guess who's back? Okay, so the detective, now I forgot his name again. Retired, Robert Cratham, said that Lori parked across the street. Seems straightforward enough, right? She parked across, she pulled up. She actually parked directly across from where Alex was sitting on the curb. And he mentioned that. But when Lori went to cross, she challenged that. And I'm not sure why. Like, for example, she was like, was there anywhere else for me to park? And he was like, yeah. So it just fell flat in the water and it made her more defensive. So, like, if I'm a juror knowing nothing about it, I'm like, that was odd. Like, why was she so adamant that that's the only place? And we saw it on the body cam. Like, there's right past Alex she could have parked. There's lots of free space, but she parked across the street. So anyway, we'll get into that. And then also you'll hear it in the testimony. And also So one of the things that happened is Alex on the call, they asked him if he wanted to do CPR. Originally, he said, no, I don't know how to do that. And then the woman on the phone, dispatcher, was like, I can talk you through it if you'd like. And he said, okay. And then he pretended to be doing the CPR. I've had it in two different videos. The one from Monday morning, the probable cause bit, and then I don't remember. I'll link them. I don't remember. I think the other one was Sunday or Saturday. It's all a blur at this point. But he wasn't doing it. And so once the prosecutor got one of the first responders, who I believe was the first witness, I can't think of his name, but she asked, did you have on gloves? Did you start doing CPR? Did you get blood on your gloves? He said yes. So when Alex walked out of the house in the body cam footage, he has no blood on his hands, right? And as we listen to the call, we know that the first responders arrive on scene and police, because the first responders don't go in until the police have cleared the house. But when he comes out, his hands are clean. He's on the phone. He's told, to come outside with his hands up. Where's the weapon? Is it secured? All the stuff that they do. So he comes out with his hands up and they're clean, which is odd because he's the murderer. He has unclean hands, but literally no blood on his hands when he comes outside, right? So we know he wasn't doing CPR. Then there were other indicators of like the feeling that you would have when you first start doing the CPR, like a crunchy feeling on the breastbone was described. And so the first responder said he felt all of that as if he were the first person to touch the body, right? To touch Charles. And Charles had the appearance of already being deceased. He had no heartbeat, like all of the signs that you would expect for someone who's no longer alive. But yet they tried life-saving measures anyway, trying to resuscitate him. The thing is like if Alex had done that, like maybe oxygen and blood flow could have continued to go to Charles's brain. But we know that he waited between, I think 40 and 47 minutes is what I calculated yesterday, before calling the police after he shot Charles. So all of these seem to be indicative of they did not want him to live, right? Lori was there when the shot happened. She doesn't call 911. She gathers up the kids and heads out to Burger King and the store to get flip-flops and dropping JJ off at school. And so why didn't she call the police? And then she shows up. She doesn't say like, oh, I already know he was shot. They don't announce it to her. So it's all very weird that she's outside and smiling and you don't say, how's my husband? How's my brother? Does anybody need an ambulance, sort of thing? And then Alex was rubbing his head, which is the testimony we'll listen to, with a cloth that appeared to have blood on it. It was white and appeared to have blood. And then Lori challenges that. Well, what do you mean it appeared to? Was it blood? He was like, well, I don't have a way to test it. So that's how I have to describe it, right? Because it could appear to be blood and be something else, it could be ketchup. And so that's also an important distinction for the jury to make, right? It appeared to be, but we never took it and tested it. So we can't say with any level of security or comfort or assurance that it appeared to be. And we often see that in reports, right? It's described that way. And then you'll later get a CSI person to say they tested it, but why would they have tested Alex's little rag, right? He's alive and well. They're testing things that are related to Charles. They couldn't find Charles's wallet or any of his ID, couldn't find his phone. We know Lori left with that phone. In fact, we know, well, some of us may not. We'll go over Lori's interrogation interview. That was the start of the fight. She took his phone and was going through it and wouldn't give it back. She continued to have it the whole time. She did not say that to officers, even during her interview. She didn't mention that she was still in possession of the phone. And so she and Alex had gone through that phone, and that's where she saw the messages between Charles and her brother Adam about the intervention. She already knew about the intervention because her mother had told her, but she was able to get very like granular nitty-gritty details by looking through his phone. So they were just up to no good. So all of this, like all of the little bits of it together, the totality of it, seem to infer they did not want him to live. Like this was an intentional setup. Lori instigated it by taking the phone. Alex escalated it by bringing a gun to an alleged bat fight. They even asked him on the scene, like, why did you go in the room to get the gun? Why didn't you go in the room to close the door and call the police? Which is a legitimate question, right? Because we now know that at that time Lori was there, Tylee was there. So what? Anyway, let's get into Lori's opening statement. My overall is she did not do well. Again, just really digging in, leaning into this family tragedy that has nothing to do with her is a little disingenuous, shall we say. Okay, let's listen.
All right, the defendant can proceed with her opening statement.
I'm going to speed it up because she talks slow. You can always slow it down for yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have been charged with a crime,
Ooh.
a serious crime. And the only question here is, did I commit this crime? Conspiracy. Conspiracy is an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime.
Okay, let's do it normal when she does the questions, because now she sounds like a chipmunk.
There has to be an agreement. There has to be a plan. The evidence in this case will show that Charles Vallow and I got married in February 2006. It will show that it was my fourth marriage and Charles' third marriage. At that time, we each had 2 children. I had Colby, who was 9.
Okay, last time I'm going to interrupt. I forgot to say. She is going to say the evidence will show 99 times. Don't ever do a drinking game with this opening, right? And she's lying when she's like, the evidence will show Tylee did this. There is no evidence to show that. So I don't know why she's saying that. Other than she watched, my bangs are going to bother me now. Other than she watched, I don't know, Law and Order or some other television serial drama where they solve the murder in 47 minutes. Also, there was one more thought I had. It'll come back to me. Let's keep going.
And Tylee, who was 3. Charles had Cole, who was also 9, and Zach, who was 7. The evidence will show that our family moved from Austin, Texas to Chandler, Arizona in 2009. The evidence will show that Charles and I adopted our great-nephew, JJ, who was born in 2012. It will also show that Charles and I were married for over 13 years and were raising 5 children. The evidence will show that I was a licensed cosmetologist and worked as a hairstylist.
Okay, I remembered. Also, what I thought was brilliant by the prosecutor was that she fit in that Lori's name at the time that this happened is Lori Vallow. And part of the reason to murder Charles is because she wanted to become Lori Daybell. I thought that was genius because, Lori's gotten her panties in a bunch about being called Lori Daybell, and she's been very snippy about it. But it is, in fact, true that she was Lori Vallow at the time of this. And so when we say Miss Vallow did X, Y, and Z, it is not incorrect because that is who she was at the time. And the only reason that she is no longer Lori Vallow is because they murdered Charles. So that was very powerful. And all Lori can do about that is be mad. So yeah, I disagree when people are like, she could have done better. I thought Miss Trina K knocked it out of the park.
Stylist for 20 years while we lived in Austin, Texas. The evidence will show that Charles was a licensed life insurance salesman and worked as an independent contractor, selling life insurance policies and annuities, and owned his own business. The evidence will show that Charles and I purchased life insurance policies early in our marriage, and Charles had them issued to the maximum amount possible to each of us. The evidence will show that Charles was 17 years older than me, and that because of Charles' age and an issue that he had with high blood pressure, the maximum amount of life insurance that could be approved for Charles was $1 million. The maximum amount of life insurance that I could be approved for because of my age and my health was $2 million. The evidence will show that throughout our 13-year marriage, that we always had life insurance policies. When a 10-year policy lapsed, Charles would shop for another company who would approve us for the maximum amount of life insurance. The evidence will show that this was Charles' job. This is what he did. I helped him in this business, and this is what he did. The evidence will show that in 2016, Charles repurchased a new $2 million life insurance policy on me, and he was the sole beneficiary. The evidence will show that Charles and I had a happy marriage for 13 years. That he was, in fact, a baseball player, and that he played high school, college ball, and AAA ball, and that he was, in fact, a left-handed pitcher, a southpaw, they call him, but he was a right-handed batter, as could be attested to by anybody who knew Charles well and his.
So will anybody attest to it? So it came out in the prosecutor's opening that the bat that Charles allegedly was swinging was on the wrong side of his body because he was left-handed. He was a southpaw. So now she is saying, yes, he was a southpaw when he threw, but when he was batting, he used the right hand. I hope that there's evidence to state that, because that would be key. Either way, it just, the wound on Alex's head does not look like a semi-professional baseball player took a swing at the back of his head. There's no signs of what we would expect to see in blunt force trauma, right? There was no edema, the swelling. There was like a little bit of a gash and then blood coming down it. And it looked like there was an abrasion. So was this bat like, did someone sand the bat? Or I guess not even sand it. Did someone like strike it against something so that the surface was no longer smooth? Anyway, let's go.
His high school baseball coach, Greg Davis. The evidence will show that Tylee was, and in 2014, our family moved from Chandler, Arizona to Kauai, Hawaii. We lived there for 3.5 years and returned to Chandler in 2017. The evidence will show that Tylee was 3 years old when Charles and I got married, and that when she became a teenager, the relationship between Tylee and her stepfather, Charles, became so difficult that Tylee and Charles had to seek a therapist, a family therapist, to stop them from fighting. The evidence will show that together, Charles and Tylee met with this therapist after we moved back to the mainland in 2017. The evidence will show that in April of 2018, Tylee's biological father passed away from a heart attack. And at that time, Charles called Social Security. And
so I don't believe there's any evidence to show that he passed from a heart attack. Mr. Ryan, I'm blanking on his first name, but it's my understanding that the body was so decomposed they could not identify a cause of death to determine. But if you guys know different, please let me know.
Made an appointment at the Social Security
I'm
office.
Object to hearsay.
Sustain.
Oh, and both in her opening and in her questioning, there's lots of hearsay. I don't know why her advisory council didn't advise her, or maybe they did and she's just trying to sneak it in, but you see her testifying and, things that are not in evidence, objection, things that are not, are not on the record, it'll come to me. But that hearsay is going to be a problem for her.
It will show that we did get Social Security for Tylee for her deceased father until she was 18 years old, and she was 15 years old at the time. The evidence will show that Charles and Tylee's fighting increased greatly in January of 2019 when.
So if she was 15 at the time, we did not, unless she means just she and Tylee, because if Charles is dead when she's 15, he's no longer involved in collecting this money from her dead father.
Charles and I temporarily separated. The evidence will show that.
Oh, let's go back. Sorry.
The evidence will show that several people witnessed these terrible arguments between Tylee and Charles that increased to physical in 2019. Charles and Tylee had major increasing arguments, 2 in February of 2019, 1 of March in 2019, which was captured on video, 1 in May of 2019, 1 in June of 2019, and then the worst of all in July 2019. The evidence will show that in March of 2019, Charles pulled JJ out of his special school and moved him to Houston, Texas, while we were temporarily separated.
So this is reported by others as Lori abandoning JJ for 2 months. So we know that Charles has business in Texas. So he couldn't come to Austin. I'm sorry, he couldn't leave Austin and come to Arizona to keep him in the school. I don't know where she went. I'm guessing she was somewhere with Chad, but she ran off, and then Tylee was living with Uncle Alex. So whatever Lori had to do was more important than her kids. But she's making it sound like somehow Charles did something wrong.
Tylee and I then joined Charles and JJ. The evidence will show that in March of 2019, Charles pulled JJ out of his special school and moved him to Houston, Texas, while we were temporarily separated. Tylee and I then joined Charles and JJ in Texas in April 2019 to reconcile. The evidence will show that JJ was diagnosed with severe autism when he was 3 years old while we lived in Hawaii. The evidence will show that for 2 years, JJ was attending a school in Gilbert, Arizona, a special school for children with autism. It's called Lawrence Life Academy. The evidence will show that in June of 2019, in JJ's best interest, Tylee, JJ, and I moved back to Chandler, Arizona to re-enroll JJ back in Lawrence.
In his best interest. I wish she wouldn't have said the school's name. Hopefully nobody harasses the people at the school, but I'm sure if anybody's child goes there and they get wind of this, they're going to be like, did your son or daughter was in class with JJ Vallow?
Life Academy, since he had a difficult time with the Houston, Texas schools with no services for his autism. The evidence will show that Charles and I agreed it was in JJ's best interest to be in school where more services were available to him. So Charles and I rented a house here in Chandler. On the day in question, July 11th, 2019, Charles and I were renting 2 houses, one in Houston, Texas, where he mainly resided, and one in Chandler, Arizona, where I resided with our 2 minor children, Tylee and JJ. By this time, our 3 older boys, Colby, Cole, and Zach, were adults and not living at home any longer. The evidence will show that during the months of June and July, that my husband, Charles Vallow, began to send me threatening text messages. These messages were seen by my sister Summer, and that worried her. The evidence will show that Charles insisted on flying into Phoenix on July 10th, as we've heard from the state. The evidence will show that I advised Charles that he could not stay with us at the Chandler house because he could not get along with Tylee, and I did not want them to get into another fight.
I wonder if she keeps saying the evidence will show because her advisory council said you only can talk about things in the opening that you plan to prove in the case, in your case in chief. But it seems redundant. Also, notice that she's not connecting with the jury. Like here, she's looking up where I've frozen it, but her face is in the paper, right? She's concentrating on reading. She's not connecting with them. She's not making eye contact, like steady eye contact. She's not pausing to confirm that they're picking up what she's putting down. It's odd.
Like they had 3 weeks prior. The evidence will show that it was ultimately decided between Charles and I on text messages that he would stay in a hotel because he traveled for business all the time and stayed in hotels all the time, and that I would book it for him since I worked for him and booked all of his travel. The evidence will show that Charles did in fact fly into Phoenix on Wednesday, July 10th, and stayed in the hotel that I booked for him. The evidence will show that Charles paid to fly my brother Adam Cox into Phoenix from Kansas on the same day, Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. The evidence will show that Charles planned to come to our Chandler home and pick up JJ and drive him to school on Thursday morning, July 11th, 2019. The evidence will also show you that Lawrence Life Academy opens its gates at 8:25 a.m. in the morning. And the evidence will show that Charles showed up at our Chandler residence around 7:30 in the rental car I booked for him on the morning of Thursday, July 11th, 2019. The evidence will show that Charles began texting with my brother, Adam Cox, before he entered our residence. And that Charles and Adam were discussing in their text communications that my other brother, Alex Cox, was at the residence. The evidence will show that on the morning of July 11th, that Tylee was asleep in her room and my brother Alex.
So we saw that, right, in yesterday's video that I created for you guys. He said, Alex is here. And Adam was like, they're up to something. And Charles responded, absolutely. So the hair on the back of his neck was already standing up. when he pulled up, because Alex's truck is parked. He parked in backwards. He backed into the driveway. So, and Charles parked just to the left of the car. So, before he entered, he knew. And I think Alex wanted him to know that he was there.
Was asleep in the guest room. The evidence will show that when Charles entered the house, only JJ and I were awake and present. The evidence will show that after we put JJ in the rental car, that Charles came back into the residence to receive his phone, leaving JJ in the front seat of the rental car with the engine running. He was 7 years old. The evidence will show that Charles began to scream at me when I refused to hand him his phone. The evidence will show that Charles screaming.
Okay. My son is only 1 and we live in New York, so he's rarely in a car. But I lived in California when I was raising my daughter, and she was not allowed, legally permitted to be in the front seat because of the airbags. And in looking at that rental car, it looked fairly new. So I'm not sure. I think the rule in California was 12 or 13 they had to be, because she had just started riding in the front before we moved to New York. So we can't tell from the Burger King footage if JJ was still in the front, but she's making it offensive that the car was running and he was in it. I'm offended that he was in the front seat, but that's just me as a mom.
Woke up Tylee and Alex. The evidence will show that Tylee came out of her room with a bat to protect me, her mother, from her stepfather, Charles Vallow. The evidence will show that Tylee and Charles fought over the bat, and that after a struggle over the bat, Tylee fell onto the ground, and Charles lifted up the bat to hit Tylee with the bat.
Who believes that? I mean, we'll hear testimony. Well, you and I will hear recorded interviews with Charles's ex-wife, and it just doesn't seem like multiple people have said it. Adam said it, the landlord who was Charles's friend, who they rented the Arizona property from. And also she's saying Tylee needed to protect her from what? What was Charles doing that she needed physical protection? And Alex is in the room, who spent the night specifically for protection, per Lori's own mouth. So what was she protecting her from? And she's conveniently omitted the fact that she is holding Charles's phone. You guys will remember, if not, I'm going to tell you anyway. Adam was saying Charles would have never left his phone. He wouldn't have set it down. And it seems to be the case. And this is without him knowing that Lori was withholding the phone, right? So she's omitting all of that. She is the aggressor. She is the instigator. Had she not withheld his phone, he would have been on his merry way. He wasn't trying to stay in there. He already knew Alex was no good and up to no good.
Bat. And that after a struggle over the bat, Tylee fell onto the ground, and Charles lifted up the bat to hit Tylee with the bat. The evidence will show that Alex then intervened to protect Tylee from being hit with the bat. He did not have a gun. He was not wearing a shirt. He was pulling up his jeans because he just woke up and came into the room where he heard the screaming.
Who thinks he just woke up? He was on
The
ready.
evidence will show that Alex and Charles got into a physical struggle for the bat and fell onto the ground. The evidence will show that Tylee, who was on the ground, was lifted up by me and sent outside to get away from the struggle and to protect JJ, who was still in the running car, in the rental car in the driveway.
Protect him from what?
The evidence will show that after this struggle on the ground between Charles and Alex, that Charles prevailed with the bat and began to come towards me with the bat as I...
If anything, him leaving the car running, demonstrates he was going to run in, grab his phone, and run out. She's withholding his phone. He wasn't going to leave without his phone, because then that means he's got to come back.
I ran away from him into the kitchen. The evidence will show that at some point while I was running away from Charles, who was chasing me with the bat, that Alex apparently retrieved his gun. The evidence will show that I ran outside to the children and that Alex shot Charles in self-defense. The evidence will show that Tylee and I had both run outside without shoes.
Why didn't he run outside? Alex run outside. Y'all had the phones. Why didn't you guys run outside and call the police? Get in the running car, go around the corner and call the police. There were other options.
The evidence will show that JJ was still in the front seat of the rental car with the engine running and struggling to get out of the car. Tylee was trying to keep him in. The evidence will show that Tylee and I got into the rental car with JJ and drove away. The evidence will show you that I drove the children away from the residence towards JJ's school.
Girl, get it together.
Can I grab a tissue?
Yes.
Her hair's looking nice today.
The evidence will show that I drove the children through the Burger King drive-thru that Charles had promised JJ. The evidence will show that we continued to drive towards JJ's school and that the gate was not yet open at JJ's school. So we drove a block west of the school to a Walgreens where I ran in to purchase flip-flops for Tylee and myself so that we could walk JJ into school on the hot pavement.
So they walked into Walgreens with no shoes on the hot pavement so that they didn't have to walk into the school with the hot pavement.
The evidence will show that Tylee and I returned directly to our residence where we met with police in our driveway. The evidence will show that we were spoken to by the Chandler police officers. And the evidence will show that Tylee and I were told by the Chandler police detectives that Charles had passed away. The evidence will show that we were put into a police van and driven to the Chandler Police Department. The evidence will show that Alex was taken by police in a police car to the Chandler Police Department, and that we were all three separated into interrogation rooms and we were each interviewed. The evidence will show that next, Tylee and I were brought back together into a room at the Chandler Police Department and were introduced to a victim's advocate.
Also, when we watched the videos, she and Tylee were not put into an interrogation room. They were put into the interview room. There's a teddy bear in the room. They're sitting in comfy chairs. Alex was put into an interrogation room. He's in there across the table from a detective, where they really stick it to you.
It was very kind to us. The evidence will show that after speaking to the victim's advocate, that Tylee, Alex, and myself were put back into the police van and driven back to our residence. We were directed by the Chandler detectives to take the rental car and return later to the residence after we picked up JJ from school. The evidence will show that we did as instructed by the Chandler detectives. The evidence will show that we drove to Alex's residence where we attended to the wound on the back of his head. The evidence will show that Alex was then contacted by the Chandler detectives to return to the residence so that Alex could walk them through the events that occurred with the detectives at the residence. The evidence will show that Alex, Tylee, and I did return to the residence as instructed. And the evidence will show that Alex entered into the residence with Detective Moffett, but that Tylee and I were met by Detective Inklin in the front yard. The evidence will show that at the time, Detective Inklin asked Tylee and myself if we had Charles' cell phone. Tylee retrieved Charles' cell phone from the rental car and gave it to Detective Inklin at 3:11 p.m. on July 11th, 2019. And at that time, Charles' phone was placed in the custody of Chandler police detectives. The evidence will show that Detective Inklin asked us if we knew the passcode on Charles' phone, which Tylee proceeded to give to Detective Inklin. The evidence will show that Tylee and I left the residence to pick up JJ from school, while Alex remained at the residence with the detectives. The evidence will show that by the time Tylee, JJ, and I returned to the residence, that all police, EMS, CSI, and detectives were gone from the residence and only Alex remained. The evidence will show that the next day, I contacted Chandler police.
Oh, wait. The evidence isn't going to show you had a pool party and scared all the neighbors because Alex was still there with his big old truck in the front yard. Is the evidence going to show that, Lori? Because it happened.
To inform them that Charles' belongings were still at the hotel. I asked the detective if I should go get them, and I was told that they would take care of it. The evidence will show that I asked the detectives, what should we do next? And they directed us that they would contact us in about 3 weeks after their supervisor passed off the reports and Alex could go to the police station and retrieve his gun. The evidence will show that the last thing I heard from Chandler Police Department until June of 2021, 2 years later, when I received a grand jury indictment from them for this alleged crime. The evidence will show that Chandler Police treated this incident as self-defense.
And object to that.
Objection sustained. The jury should disregard that last statement.
The evidence will show you that my brother, Alex Cox, passed away on December 12th, 2019, almost exactly 5 months to the day after Charles, my husband, passed away. The evidence will show that Alex passed away from a blood clot in his lung.
Objection. Again.
I'll sustain the objection. It's not relevant for this matter.
The evidence will show you that I am the only person being charged with this crime.
I would object to the relevance of that.
Sustained.
As the state has mentioned, they're alleging that insurance money was my motive. Social Security was my motive. Spouses having insurance policies is not a crime. Collecting Social Security is not a crime. Self-defense is not a crime. A family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy. Thank you.
So, what do you guys think? I think the tears were to elicit sympathy. I think she failed on that. It was clearly an acting job, in my opinion, my 2 cents. It fell flat for me. I know too much, though, right? That's what they used to tell me as a kid. You know too much for your own good. Meaning I know more than what the jury knows. But it still felt fake. You can tell when people are sincerely crying. If you need to blow your nose, who asked for permission to get a tissue? You're not going to stand there with like snot and tears running. I wouldn't, down your face, right? So you're asking, that means they could tell you yes or no. Honey, I would have been like, I need a tissue. Do you know? And she was already crying during the prosecutor's opening statement. So why didn't she think to take a Kleenex or a tissue, with her? It just seems like it was for dramatic effect. But let me, I'm a cynic. Tell me what it came across to you. Okay, so we're going to wrap up. This is Sergeant Erwin Worsbicki. I'm just going to do a bit of the cross. Prosecutor just asked basic foundational stuff, getting stuff on the record. Just see, Lori's hair looks nice. I don't know if she meant to leave that. Honey, I am a fan of the back of my head is none of my business, but clearly she's about her business in the back too.
So I would say he looked very calm and unbothered.
But you said nonchalant a minute ago.
I don't recall saying that.
Okay. Does everyone act the same in a stressful situation that you've experienced?
So if she was sure he said nonchalant, I would have had the court reporter read that back because now she looks silly. Like, okay. Like, did he say it or didn't he say it, ma'am? Get your facts together. Look at the judge. He's given like steam heat. I'm here for this judge. He's smoldering in a non-sexual way. Well, it could be sexual, but it's just like, I can see the steam coming off the top of his head and I'm here for it. Go ahead, Judge Borowski.
No. Are you qualified to give someone a psychological evaluation?
No.
No.
Did he give someone that?
You put your hand on my husband's neck for checking for a pulse. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you did when you first came in?
Watch
Yes.
the judge.
Did you perform CPR?
No,
No. Why not?
because it was apparent to me that he was deceased.
And that's not your protocol
To what?
to perform CPR until fire comes in?
On
Now
dead
it's going to
people?
make it even worse because they had apparent gunshot wounds to the chest.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if I start pumping on his chest, it's going to start spewing blood out of his chest even at a more rapid pace.
So when the 911 operator was telling my brother to do that,
How would
that
he know?
Same thing would happen?
All
Objection.
depends on when the call came into dispatch.
But I'm saying if you're doing CPR on someone with a gunshot wound in the chest, on the chest.
Could, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It could. Depends on how soon after the gunshot wound.
And you said something else. You said fire gives official time of death. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that time of death? Do you know?
I do not recall.
And you cleared the house before fire came in. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you were looking for some kind of identification?
When
Yes.
I cleared the house,
Yes.
I was looking for other potential victims and or suspects.
Okay. But you were told on the phone that no one else was in the house but Alex. Is that correct?
I don't recall if I was told that or not.
Okay.
But he still said
Do you have any crime scene investigation experience?
Just my 20 years of experience as a police officer.
Hey.
And you said something about, and this is just for me to understand, you said something about the casings being to the left of him or to the right of him?
I didn't say they were to the left or to the right.
Look at the
Oh,
judge.
did you say west or east?
No.
Oh, sorry, that was my interpretation. Can you tell me what the weapon was that you found?
A
It
gun.
was a handgun.
Was it a 45?
Don't recall.
Okay.
Does it matter?
Could you tell what direction the bullet came from?
Based off the way the body was laying, I could assume it came from where his feet were at.
Near the feet?
Mhm.
Did you see the projectile that was in the baseboard?
Testifying. Who said
I
it was
don't
in the
recall if I
baseboard?
saw that or not.
Maybe somebody did. I'm just heated.
You said he did not appear alive, that you already thought that he was deceased. Is that correct? When you entered into the house?
Yes.
And what time was that?
I believe I was dispatched to the call at 8:41. So I mean, if I was going to make a guess on what time I walked into the house, I would say I was.
I'm gonna objectify this man for a minute. If there's a crime and he shows up, this is or he's a sergeant. Sorry, this is the dude I want showing up if there is a crime. Like he looks like he's about that life. You might f around. You definitely gonna find out.
Probably at the residence within 10 minutes,
So around 8:51, perhaps?
possibly, yes.
Okay. And then when fire took over, is that the normal protocol for fire to take over and do the CPR?
Yes,
And so you didn't do CPR, but they did do the CPR. Is that
Yes.
correct?
yes.
On top of the gunshot wound.
And doesn't that make sense? Because if they are there, they are trained medically to address that there's extra bleeding, but they're trying to keep his blood flowing so that he continues to get blood and oxygen to his brain. Because if he does survive, you don't want him to be brain dead. Like that seems obvious to me. Is anybody else confused about that? Like this line of questioning seems redundant and pedantic.
Yes.
Is that normal protocol?
I don't know what their protocol is.
Okay. I'm just asking because
We know why you're
I
asking.
wouldn't think to do that either. And then you said that you went outside to put up the crime scene tape. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So after you cleared the house, you left and went to the front yard?
Yes.
And then you were there for how long at the residence before you left?
I couldn't give you a time.
Did you stay for a while or was that the end of your job there?
I don't recall. It was a long time ago. I have no idea how long I was actually on scene for.
And who is your direct supervisor?
I
Like-
believe that day was Sergeant Nocella.
I'm sorry, what was the last name?
Nocella?
Okay.
And it's almost 6 years later, right? So this happened the summer of 2019, July 11th, and we're in April of 2025. So she's not going to refresh his memory. I don't know what this line of questioning is. Like, what difference does it make when he left as far as proving that it's self-defense or not? Because that's what she's got to prove.
And what contact did you have with Detective Moffat that day?
Well, technically, don't come for me. She's the defendant. She doesn't have to prove anything. The state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. But if it is in her best interest as part of her defense to remain with the self-defense claim.
I don't know if I had any with him on scene.
Okay. What about Detective England, perhaps?
I may have briefly spoke to her while I was on scene.
Okay. One time, two times? 3 times?
Who
I
cares?
couldn't tell you a number.
Okay, let's get to
Okay.
the next. This one, I just want to see how long it is. 20 to, it's 29 minutes. So I'm going to start just when she starts crossing. Prosecutor ask all the things you would think they would ask here. Let's go right at the end.
Yes, that's my Sergeant Nacella.
We see something in Officer Becky's hand. Is that the crime scene tape?
Yes. We do an inner and then an outer perimeter.
We've got Alex on the ground, his truck in the driveway. Lori has parked across the street, directly across. He's telling her to stay over there. They're not doing the dialogue here. I suspect it will come in later. I'm just gonna.
Is it normal for a patrol officer to have to stay with the individual who is the shooter, ensure that no one else is contacting them?
Yes,
So you don't want any of the neighbors walking up to them?
correct. At this moment, I'm still basically fact finding. I'm just trying to figure out what happened, when it happened, who was involved, kind of thing. And
I'm not doing
yeah, I
that.
try to keep them separate.
At some point, do sergeants and others start arriving on scene?
Yes, that's my Sergeant Nacella.
When you have a scene like this where detectives are going to be called out, do all the different patrol officers provide their information that could be relevant to one person who can then brief the detectives?
Yes, I briefed my supervisor to let him know from my point of view what I know and what I was told. And then at some point, I think he would disseminate that to the detectives.
So is this you kind of telling him at this point what you've learned?
Yes,
And can we also see what the body camera looks like on the shoulder there?
yes, he has the same type.
That's a lipstick camera. He explained it earlier. Let's move fast here.
And who arrived? So there was nowhere to park.
People running around screaming?
No,
Were people running in and out of the front door?
no,
So were the officers calm?
it was just me and another officer.
Were you calm?
Yes,
Was the other officer calm?
he was.
Were the detectives calm?
They were.
Was the fire department calm?
So she's trying to make the point that if Alex were calm, she's contrasting it to them. I don't think it's a fair contrast, and the prosecutor on cross will nail this, but it's just like firemen running into a burning building. They are calm because they have procedures and protocols. They have a SOP, standard operating procedures, that allow them to run in and out of burning buildings to come out alive, God willing. So there's no reason for them to be hyped, but she's comparing trained professionals arriving at a crime scene to her brother, who allegedly was afraid for his life.
I didn't interact with him very much. I couldn't answer that.
Your friend the Wiz was calm?
Yes, the other officer, yes.
Your friend the Wiz. It sounds like Wizard of Oz is my favorite movie. It sounds like that. And I love that the detective's name, I can't remember. I think his name is like Wisnowski or something, but they call him Wiz. I would have that on everything, personalized license plate, monogram. Nobody beats the Wiz.
So when I arrived at the scene, things were pretty calm.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Oh, yes, you were calm.
No, I'm saying when I arrived at the scene itself was calm environment.
It was.
Okay. So if I would have been hysterical, that would have been more out of character than if I was calm when everybody else was being calm. Isn't that correct?
Speculation.
Sustain.
Yeah, how? Why would we know what your state of mind will be? Or why would he know?
So you said that Alex was calm and was holding a towel in his right hand and holding it up to the back of his head. Is that correct?
He did.
And you said, oh, sorry, it's in my other note. Just now that his head had a 1-inch laceration. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's like a cut down his head, 1
It
inch?
is.
Okay. And you said a small knot.
I did.
Is that correct? Okay. And that it was bleeding a little. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so a small knot is what you declared it, but would you not call it a goose egg?
What?
Tomato.
Okay. Did Alex ask for medical treatment?
He did not.
How many times did you ask him if he needed medical treatment?
I think 3 times.
Okay. And there was EMS right there next to you?
Yes.
So an EMS person could have just come over and checked the back of his head pretty easily, yeah?
If he consented,
But no one asked anybody to do that.
he denied medical treatment.
And he didn't seem disoriented to you at all?
No.
So you didn't think he needed any kind of medical attention at the time?
He offered
No.
it.
And he didn't ask for any at the time?
Correct. He did not.
And you didn't supply any at the time?
Correct.
Okay. But EMT was right there next to you?
Pedantic. Asked
Yes.
and answered.
Okay. That's another thing that you said, calm and nonchalant. Is that correct? You
Yes.
stated that Alex was nonchalant. What is your definition of nonchalant?
Kind of like how I am now. I don't have a lot of emotion. I'm not afraid. Just nonchalant.
Is that your typical demeanor?
I guess it depends on the situation and the circumstance.
I mean, this can be a stressful situation, right? So it's your demeanor right now.
It is.
Testifying in court can be a
Good
stressful
question.
situation.
I guess it can be.
So if that was Alex's normal demeanor, then it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for him to be nonchalant.
Objection, speculation.
I'll allow it. I'll allow that answer. He doesn't know the demeanor, but you can answer.
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, so if Alex's normal demeanor was like your normal demeanor, and even in a stressful situation, if he was nonchalant, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for him to be nonchalant again, because that's his normal demeanor. Correct?
The compound question.
I'll sustain that objection.
She got too excited because she got her.
You mentioned that I had parked across the street. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why did I have to park across the street?
Who knows?
I don't know.
So we saw on the body cam, right, that there was a huge fire truck, correct?
Yes.
There was police cars, correct?
Yes.
There was a CSI van, correct?
She was parked somewhere. I don't know where.
Next to the house, kind of, I guess.
He said he didn't
south
know
of the
where.
house. So there was nowhere to park except for across the street. Is that correct?
No,
That's not correct?
that is not correct.
No,
Where else could I have parked?
Well,
ma'am.
the street's long. You could have parked anywhere along the street. You could have parked on the other street. That's where I parked. Or you could park on the other side of the street, south of the home, where there was plenty of parking. So there was other options to park.
Right.
But I parked as close as I could to the scene
Who
so that I
knows?
could come talk to you. Is that correct?
Speculation, testifying.
Sustain.
So we can agree that there are lots of
Evidence.
police vehicles blocking the house. Is that correct?
Emergency
Blocking?
vehicles.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, emergency, police, fire, CSI, all were there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But even though all of those things are there, the scene was not chaotic. Is that correct?
Correct.
It was a very calm scene that day.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustain.
Do you know how hot it was that day?
No, but it was hot.
It was hot.
Look how the judge looked at her. That side eye. His side eye is cold.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. What was the extent of your duties that day? I know that you had arrived on the scene. You said dispatched was about 8:39 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then it took you about 4 to 5 minutes to arrive.
Yes.
And then you were the first on the scene.
No.
No.
No. Who was the first on the scene? Do you know?
Wiz was.
Oh, that's correct. And then who arrived? How long after he arrived did you arrive? Do you know?
Oh, I was like seconds,
Okay.
maybe 10, 15 seconds.
And then you were right there when Alex came out of the house.
I was.
And you were with him basically that whole time till he
Yes.
got into the police car?
Yes,
And then did you drive him to the station?
I did.
So you were in the car with him the whole time?
Yes,
So you really never didn't have eyes on Alex from the time he came out of the house till the time he got to the police station?
correct.
Okay. And did you have conversation on the way to the police station?
I did.
You did. And that's the second body cam we didn't watch. Is that correct? That has your name on it?
Yeah, there's another body worn camera we haven't seen.
Right. From the police car, I'm saying.
Yes, me driving.
You driving, but it comes from the car, not from the shoulder body cam. Is that correct?
No, it comes from my
Oh, it was
body-worn
still
camera.
on your shoulder.
Yes,
Okay. And in that, did you have a conversation with Alex on the way to the police station?
Yes.
Objection asked and answered.
And did he express,
Hold on. When
Sorry.
there's an objection.
I'm sorry,
Wait for the ruling. I'll sustain the objection, but the answer will stand nonetheless. Go ahead. Next question.
did he express to you that he kind of felt out of it because he hit?
Hearsay?
Sustain.
When did you make your report about the incident on July 11th, 2019?
I think what was the end of my workday that day, but I stopped and started it numerous times throughout the day.
So did you finish it that day or it still took a few days?
No, I finished at the end of my shift,
By the end of your shift, which was what time that day?
4 o'clock.
Okay. And did you make any revisions to that later on?
No,
So this is the only report that you made in regards to the day of July 11th, 2019?
it is.
You stated that there was red liquid on the rag towel that appeared to be blood. Did you think it was something other than blood?
Well, I had no way to test it, so I have to articulate it that way.
So he was bleeding from the back of the head
He was.
on the right-hand side.
Yes,
Is that correct? Okay. And then was it you on the body cam who briefed the detectives, Detective Moffett and Detective Inklin in the front yard?
yes, I made contact with him. Yes,
And then you had told them basically what Alex had conveyed to you, what happened?
yes.
And then what did they do with that information? Did they just put it into a report?
I don't know. You'll have to ask them.
Okay. So your report goes to who after you're finished with it?
I sent it to my supervisor.
And who was that at the time? Do you remember?
That was Bill Nacella.
Oh, the same one?
Sergeant,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. And then
The dude on the scene.
did you speak to the case agent on this case regarding this?
I'm gonna skip ahead to the redirect because we're like at a oh god. Woohoo.
Calm and nonchalant. Had they just meeting last?
Probably around an hour total.
Did you review this report before you came to testify today as well?
I did.
Was that some weird gotcha? Who cares?
What else?
Make sure I had a supervisor en route. And then manage the people that walked up.
So what you wrote in your report, basically, what you were told. Is that correct?
Yes.
He's handsome and I love his suit.
So it took you 3 pages to write what you were told, but it took you less than a minute to discuss that with the detectives. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Does she have a point? Written always takes longer than verbal.
How long was that transport from the residence to the Chandler Police?
Okay, here we go.
the beginning of cross-examination, you were asked about Alex Cox's demeanor. Do you recall that?
I do.
And you had advised that he was nonchalant and calm, right?
Yes.
And you were asked whether or not you were nonchalant and calm too, correct?
Yes.
Had you just shot someone?
No.
You were asked if the firefighters were calm and nonchalant. Had they just shot someone?
As far as I know, no.
How about Officer Wiz? You said he was nonchalant and calm too. Had he just shot anyone?
No.
So it's not really exactly the same to compare you to the shooter, right?
Correct. I would not compare us.
When you went up to the scene, you had your gun drawn on him, correct?
Yes.
Still nonchalant and calm?
Yes.
You were asked a lot also about your nonchalant and calm appearance today in court. Are you stressed or just answering questions to the best of your knowledge?
The latter, just answering questions to the best of my knowledge.
You had to testify before?
I have.
You were asked about the injury to Alex Cox. We have seen the body-worn camera footage and we cut it off at some point. When Mr. Cox first came out of the house, he did not have his hand to his head, correct?
Correct.
You told us you didn't notice an injury at that point.
Correct.
When he first sat down on the curb before you moved him, did you notice an injury at that point?
I did not.
Was he touching his head at that point?
Recollection, I don't remember.
At some point in the video that we watched, did we see Alex Cox touch his head?
Yes.
When you were watching him, did you at times see him rubbing his head?
Yes.
The towel or paper towel or whatever that was in his hand, was that the only item you ever saw him using to rub or?
That just seems weird too. Like, why would you rub an owie? Like, if it's a goose egg, like she said, rubbing it would irritate it. Are you rubbing it to get more blood out? I mean, usually the head wounds are pretty messy, but it just seems weird that he would be rubbing it. Like, he doesn't have ice on it. Do you know? Just me?
Touch his head.
Yes.
Was it soaked or saturated in blood?
No.
Also, he had his sunglasses on the whole time. But when he came out, did he put those on after he shot Charles? Were they on before? He never pulls them down to cover his eyes. Presumably, they were either on his head or within arm's reach, because remember, he claimed to be doing CPR. He was instructed to stop, exit the home. When did he grab those sunglasses?
Can we see it on the body cam that it's mostly white?
Yes.
The paper towel or cloth that he had was mostly white.
So if we want to really know how long it was that he was seated before he touched his head, we could watch the time on the body cam, right?
Yes.
Most reliable
You were
evidence.
asked if you met with the prosecutor previously. When we met, did you have to watch that entire body cam?
Yes.
And is that when you actually initialed it, exhibit number 1 there, so that you would recognize it in court?
Yes.
You were asked about when you arrived and when you later transported Alex Cox to the precinct. Would looking at the CAD report help refresh your recollection as to when you had at least taken him to the precinct?
Yes.
If I could have my paralegal bring up the CAD report.
Go ahead.
Does that help refresh your recollection as to when you arrived back at the precinct with Alex Cox?
It does.
And when was that?
9:18 and 19 seconds.
And so the 911 call was at 8:36 a.m.?
That's when I received it. It could have come into the dispatch a few minutes earlier.
And you said you arrived, and we saw you on the body cam right after Officer Where's Biggie, who got there around 8:41?
Yes.
So you were with Alex Cox at the scene and talking to Lori Vallow and her daughter and doing those briefings in that 20, 30 minutes?
Yes.
No other questions, Your Honor.
All right, I see at least one jury question in a bin. If there are any jury questions, please pass them down at this time.
Oh yeah, in Arizona, the jury gets to ask questions. I love that. So they're all going on their headsets, just like they sidebar on headset. They're gonna discuss it first before it's read into the record. While we can't hear them and the jury can't hear them, they can see their expressions. The beeping is on that side. Let me see if I can scoot it forward. And I believe there's noise going on in there. I don't want to move it forward. I'm afraid I'm going to bump into the next witness there. I wish I had that little thing like on the phone where you can move it 5 seconds. If someone knows how to make that happen on the computer, let me know.
Back to the scene to,
Okay.
Tad will help you answer that. Do you know when you were finished with this call? What time it was when you were finished or released from this call and able to go back out?
It was probably 5 minutes after, maybe 10, probably 10 minutes. I probably used the restroom, to be honest with you, and got something to drink at the station, water. So I mean, 10 or 15 minutes after the detective came in the room is when I hit the 10-8 button and I went and took other calls for service.
Okay, so you were done with this call before the end of your shift?
Oh, yes.
Okay, you didn't go back to the scene to help with scene security or anything like that?
No.
No other questions?
Did the defendant have any follow-up?
No, we're fine, Your Honor.
All right, this witness can step down. You want to give it to me that? Thank you. All right, you can call your next witness.
Was a CPR instructor for.
I'm going to stop here. This is Scott Cowden. He's the one who performed the CPR that I was telling you guys about, and he had blood on his gloves after performing the CPR. Lori does not cross-examine him, so I'll include that in our afternoon update, just so it's not repetitive. But yeah, what did you guys think? She's going to get in trouble with the hearsay. I can see that as being an issue. She's also attempting to testify. We see that a lot with the pro se defendants like Daryl Brooks trying to get things on the record. It's got to come from testimony, even documents. Remember, Daryl didn't get any of his documents entered because he acted a fool. They were like on the record as part of the case, but not on the record as part of what was put before the jury, and he got so annoyed by that. But you know what? He was a jerk. Anyway, I think like when she's like, the evidence will show. Is she bringing someone in from the school to testify when the gates open? Why is that relevant? Are they on the witness list? You know, it's all of these little things that she's kind of opened the door for that the jury is now expecting that I don't know if she's going to be able to deliver. And you notice it when the prosecutor, she still didn't say Tylee's name. She called her Lori's daughter. She's keeping a clear divide intentionally. And Lori's all over the place with everybody, with JJ and Tylee. She's saying it to elicit sympathy, in my opinion, because they're her children. She did point out that Alex was no longer with us. And she said it was, I think she said blood clots, which they objected to that. So I'm curious because I think Northwest, you were telling me, or maybe it was Larry, you were saying that it was blood clots and not medical, or it was medical and not unnatural. It wasn't like a drug or something. So they objected to that. So I wonder if there's any question about it. I did put a little bit of an autopsy clip in a video you'll see later now, but it's from Court TV and I don't actually have the actual autopsy. So I'm curious as to why. I mean, I guess it's not relevant to this case. And so prosecutor objecting keeps it out altogether. That's the only thing I can think of, but let me know what your thoughts are. So yeah, day one is done. I feel like she's Barbie lawyer if Barbie were a murderer. Do you know? It's just like she's playing lawyer, but she's in a dangerous position with not understanding hearsay fully, with testifying from the well of the court and trying to get the sympathy. But I guess all of those with the mental disorder where they're the victim pick a disorder. That's what they're going to always try to do, is solicit sympathy because they're the victim and so they deserve sympathy. In my book, she's the villain. So we'll see how it turns out. But so far, hasn't disappointed. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. I know you will. I will be probably the first 2 hours, I'll be actively responding. But, you know, I got a baby, 2 dogs, a job, 2 other YouTube channels. So be patient with me. But those first 2 hours, I'm definitely on it. I'm in it to win it with you guys. Looking forward to chopping it up with you down below. Toodles.